So thanks for everyone being watching. There's Adrian, I'm Raf, and Tony, my business partner, Nick, and
So Adrian is one of our senior developers.
Yep.
Right, at Simply PHP, and so is Nick.
and we're just co-founders.
Yeah,
Just guys.
Okay, all right,
They do the work, not us.
that's for sure.
So we did get a few questions, should we start with development questions or more like business-wise questions?
I think we should start with programming questions.
Yeah,
That would be
alright.
great.
You want them to break the
Yeah.
ice?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, let's let them.
That's good. That's good. I'm
Because I'm sure there's a lot of programmers online.
That's for sure. Actually, that on LinkedIn, that post for the life brought us to 7,500 followers on our page.
Excellent.
Yeah, so
Excellent.
that's good. That's really good.
All right, programming question.
So
Is this like a Stump the Pro type of format or just straight Q&A?
it's just Q&A. We chat. You know.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that we're gonna do no more than 30-40 minutes because some guys probably are lunching,
Okay.
eating right now. So we don't want them to miss work. But my questions are not in order. So I see like the first one in my list has been received the last, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, so there's Alan in Brazil that asked, would you guys recommend PHP for someone who's starting at web development, and why?
So someone just starting like in school? Just
Yeah,
starting to
I'm-
learn web development?
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming he's meaning.
Okay, would you guys recommend PHP?
I'd recommend PHP for any web developer just starting or
Good
or
answer.
being there.
Good answer. This is Nick from Simply PHP.
for a large number of years. But no, like PHP, I find just getting the basics of it is pretty
Yeah.
simple.
Yes.
You can get simple sites up, simple functionality out. And I'm not talking just static pages. You can use it to create dynamic pages with a simple user system and all that.
Yeah.
And then, as you get more experience, you can dig further in and, build some really crazy apps.
Yeah, that's for sure. There's and also PHP is still very popular. It exists for almost 25 years now, and Nick's with us for almost 13 years now. And even at the time, we would hear people saying that PHP is gonna be like passed by another language soon, and it's slowing down, winding down, and all of that. And it's still very popular. I think 78% of all websites and web application over the internet are still in PHP. So, yeah. What's your take on
Adrian?
that?
Well, I think that it's a good language to start programming, especially in web. But I think PHP was kind of slowly dying until PHP 7 got released, and this is, in my opinion, what actually saved it because of the major performance boost and many improvements since the release of PHP 7. So I think it's been getting better and better since September 2015.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it definitely picked up with 7. I don't know if it was dying, but it
Not
was
dying, but
it was definitely on a
vibe was not
downscale.
there
There was
Yeah.
some good improvements. There was some cool frameworks that were out that were really helping it pick up, but a lot of people found performance-wise still lagging. And 7 came out, and I guess it gave it that additional boost it needed.
Did Laravel help also? The framework, Laravel?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no statistics to go on here,
For sure.
Yeah.
but just having used Laravel and working on different projects, I find it did help because it gave a very structured framework that's easy to use on smaller to mid-sized projects as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
That's good.
That was a good question. That was
Yeah.
from Brazil?
Yeah, Alan asked that question, and I'm seeing one. I'm gonna ask it now because I don't want to lose it. Amran, tell me if I pronounce it well, Amran. Will PHP support event-driven callbacks like Node.js, or therefore defeats Node.js? We might not know what to answer, but
I mean, actually, it's not baked in the core, but you already have some programs that give this functionality in PHP. So if you can look up for React PHP, for example, so that's basically doing what Node.js is doing, but in PHP. You may want to look it up.
Interesting. Great question too. So I hope, Alan, it answers your question. Let me figure it out. All right. Then I have one. Let's go with. Well, actually, we kind of just mentioned the outdated of PHP that we heard a long time ago. But Gordon in New York asked that he hears that PHP is outdated and unscalable. What are your thoughts on whether PHP is scalable?
Did you say outdated and
Yeah.
unscalable? Okay.
Yeah, outdated and unscalable.
Wow.
What are your thoughts on whether PHP is actually scalable?
Adrian? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I think it really depends on the architecture that you choose for your application. I mean, if you put your script in a Docker image and you put that on AWS, you can scale it pretty easily. Like, as soon as you make a container that's stateless, meaning that you will not put the database in the container, you can use RDS, for example.
Mhm.
So as soon as your container is actually stateless, you can distribute the load on several servers, several containers, and I'm not sure why you couldn't rescale it.
Right.
I mean, also it depends on the scale we're talking about. I'm not so sure about that, but for a medium to large application, there shouldn't be an issue. I mean, some very large websites run on PHP.
I was going there.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a very popular website, adult website that we all know about, which is running on PHP, and it's pretty much scalable.
An adult website?
Adult
What is
website,
it
yeah.
called?
From
It's all with P.
our friends in MainGeek.
Oh,
in Montreal.
so all that Pornhub stuff and
Yes,
PornTube
everything
and
is
all
in
that is
PHP,
all in
yes.
PHP, yeah?
Yes.
Cool.
So I would argue that it's scalable
Never
because
heard
of
of
that.
Yeah, I don't know. I never heard of it.
Yeah.
We're talking about, I think, 60 million people every day visiting the website.
And Facebook still have some PHP too, right?
Yeah, I mean, technically it's not raw PHP, it's not PHP anymore, it's on the HHVM.
Right.
But,
Yeah,
but Nick and Adrian, the numbers are 75 to 80% of the web is built in PHP. Yet we still get questions about, is PHP scalable? Is PHP outdated? It's kind of weird, right? It's almost like PHP is the big guy on the block, and a lot of little guys are like poking at it. You know,
I mean,
it's
yeah,
kind of weird.
there's always been a stigma with PHP, and I think it will remain for quite some time because
Okay.
of the reputation that PHP had maybe 20 years ago, but I
Okay.
feel like this reputation is outdated and not PHP itself.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
Those
good one.
questions are
that's
outdated.
kind of the way it goes with it.
Who was that guy?
It's like it made a
Gordon.
bad first impression,
Gordon.
and it's followed
Yeah.
it along.
But 80% of the web is built in PHP, right? So
But I mean, a large
I'm spiking the
a
ball right
large
now.
portion of this percentage is actually coming from WordPress websites. Like
Mm.
the WordPress market
okay.
share is huge. I
Oh,
don't
is that
know the
right?
numbers, but
Interesting.
Oh, yeah, for
okay.
sure.
It's a two-digit numbers for sure of the entire web running on WordPress.
Really? Wow, that's
It's got
awesome.
to boost the figures a bit.
I love WordPress. Yeah.
Well, what was
I
that?
said I love WordPress. I do. That's great.
There's a question on Facebook actually that just came in. It's
Okay.
Christian.
Christian.
What changes were implemented in 7 that provided this boost in functionality?
What changes were provided in
Oh,
7 that provided the boost in functionality or
Yeah,
performance?
functionality.
I would argue that it's mainly housekeeping. Like they've been cleaning the core a bit, so like for a dev it didn't change much. I think from 5.6 to 7. Like
No, like there's no like, you know, run your function this way or build your functions that way. That really did it. Like you said, it's mostly in the core of PHP. It's how PHP handles your code, and that made the speed increase. I can't, off the top of my head, I really don't remember all the little things that they introduced.
Yeah.
Do you see an immediate boost in performance when you go from PHP 5 to 7?
I think it all depends
Is it
on
noticeable?
the scale of your website. But I remember there was a very interesting blog post made by Badoo at the time, the dating platform, and they upgraded
Forum
from
sites,
5.
dating platforms. Okay, no
Listen,
problem. I like this guy.
You know, these things drive development. Like they're the
That's
first
true.
ones who
Yeah.
come out with like a new feature, or they take advantage
There's
of the
no
new
filter,
stuff.
right?
Yeah.
It's live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they made this very interesting technical post
Yeah.
of the upgrade from 5.6 to 7.
Mm-hmm.
and they realized that they could cut their hosting cost by something along 25% ish. So that was huge, just because of the upgrade, nothing else.
Wow.
That's
So of course they had to spend some money to do it because they had some weird implementations and stuff really particular to their stacks, but they did it, and at the end they could like see a 25% boost also.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. That's a good question.
Well, the dev's been doing great, so let's go with a Tony question.
Oh boy. Okay.
I think it's more
Finally.
for you, this one. All right, so it's...
Did that come in right now, or is that something that
No,
came
I
in,
had it on my list.
Okay. Okay.
he was keeping it on the side, just ready to get you.
I want to give them a break.
I like that you didn't give me the question beforehand. That's like, that doesn't make me nervous at all.
There's Paul in Lowville.
Louisville, Kentucky?
No, it's Lowville. Lowville.
Yeah, I can't see anything.
Oh, yeah.
I'm old.
I forgot you're old.
Yeah.
So he says, so Tony, it's you. Tony, I saw one of your videos about the known unknowns.
About the known and unknowns,
Yeah,
okay.
and he says, I couldn't agree more with you because it's basically the story of his life as a developer.
Okay.
And he's like, how do I go about changing this?
How do
if
I go?
anyway.
Running into unknowns?
All the known unknowns and the unknown known and all
Yeah.
about your video that you made.
You know, I honestly, in programming and in life, you know, you can't provide for unknown unknowns because unknown unknowns come out from left field. I think the best answer would be you have to try to manage your reaction to those unknowns propping up, right? So are you going to get emotional about it? Are you going to play the blame game? Because like they say, no matter what, when something bad happens, you can't control it, but you can control your reaction to it. So as hard as it is, try to not get emotional, try to not get stressed, take a deep breath, watch the emails too. Communication is super huge. How you communicate those unknowns coming up to your client is super important, right? Don't just send like a little nasty, curt email. Just, you know, instead of sending an email, have a conversation. Be super communicative, and yeah, that's I guess the best answer to that was you can't really control unknowns, but you can control how you react to those unknowns coming up.
Cool. Actually, I
And thanks for watching that video, by the way. That's the one by the water with the ducks coming up.
Yeah.
That was good.
yeah,
Oh,
which was a
awesome.
big unknown.
Yeah.
That was cool.
I wish that we had the same weather today. It would be nice.
There's actually just to add up on what you said, if upfront you expect the unknowns, they're not going to be a big surprise anymore. If you don't expect them, or if you don't want to expect them, and you know they're going to be there anyway, obviously you're going to have a different reaction as if you expect them. So
That's a good point. So that specific developer, what was his name? Paul?
I have to
Sorry.
switch during Paul. Yeah.
Okay, so Paul, it's a good point that Raf makes. So before you even start the project, and when you're talking about the project to your client, make sure they're aware that, hey, by the way, there could be some unknowns that prop up that no one can provide for. So the client knows already, okay,
Yeah.
I understand. It's super important. Good point.
Now, to be fair, I see a question that I should answer.
It's your turn.
Yeah, it looks like it's my turn. So there's Nicholas, not you, in the UK. Oh no, sorry, it's not this one. He's in the UK. Ayr, Whitley, probably the region. So he says, I'm from the UK and I would love to come in Canada to pursue my development career. Would you have any tips for me? Well, Adrian's from France and he made it. He made it to Canada. There's many different ways to come to Canada. And there's many different programs too. There's vacation type of program or just pure permanent residency. You can, but this takes probably like 3 years. There is some sort of belief here that we're lacking developers. There's a lot of developers, actually, as a matter of fact, we get dozens of resume per week, except that the ones that we feel are going to be matching with our culture and the type of knowledges that we're looking for, yeah, it reduced the list very much. So I would say it depends. It depends of your personality. If you can show that, if you can demonstrate that you're great, you have a great personality, you really care about the company you're working with, you really want to bring value, you're gonna do the extra mile, you're gonna be probably one of the top employees in the company that's gonna hire you here. I'm tend to say that you're not going to have an issue to find a company that could sponsor you for you to come. And the process is about 6 weeks, 7 weeks, depend on how busy is the immigration. But I would try to sell myself as your true self and try to find a company here that is willing to sponsor you. And they're going to wait for a great person for 6 weeks or 7 weeks. That's not going to be an issue. Otherwise, like I said, there's a few programs. They open slots once in a while. You need to watch that every day. There's one in France, the Vacances Travail.
Yeah, the work holiday visa. I'm pretty sure it's available for the UK as well.
Yeah, I think so.
So I mean, I think that's a great option for Canada, because if it's the same as France, but I'm not sure about that. The French one allows you to remain 2 years in Canada and do anything you want, whether it's work or holiday. You have no limitations on the kind of work you can do. No time limit, nothing, and you can just do whatever you want, wherever you want in Canada. So
and the good thing about that is that you have 2 years basically that I would learn French, because French, I mean, if you come in Quebec, obviously, like if you go in another province, that might not be as crucial as Quebec, the province. But I would make sure to learn French within the first 12 to 18 months, because from there, because you would have a 1 year, minimum 1 year of experience in the work environment, then you can apply for something that is called a CSQ. It's a Quebec certification selection or something like that. And this with a valid work permit, so let's say it's the work holiday one, and this, you can basically do pretty much everything you want after that. So that 2 years will give you lots of options if you do things right, obviously.
So just to clarify, for the 2-year program, do they have to be sponsored by a company?
Nope.
No,
Nope.
so it's not even necessary to.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's
they apply themselves, and that's it. Yeah, it's a
Is that because they're programmers, or is that for
No,
anybody?
everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, no limited. Yeah.
So I guess that would be the best option, because while you're
it's limited though.
oh, it's limited.
Yeah.
Limited spaces.
Yeah, exactly.
Ah, okay.
So
So if that's not available, my little follow-up question now, as a business owner.
Yeah.
That's not. Let's say that's not available to what was his name? Johnny? Nicholas. So let's say that that's not available to Nicholas. All right, the program is suspended or whatever. What advice would you give him in order to prove himself to a business owner that he's worth sponsoring if he can't come here and prove himself or herself? Is it LinkedIn? Like, hey, I'm following your stuff on LinkedIn. I think that would be a great.
Well, there's multiple ways. It depends also on the financial situation of that person. For example, if let's say Nicholas can go on for a couple months with a very small amount of money, I would say, I know it's expensive for you guys to sponsor me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come at whatever salary, low, or even free for a few weeks or a few weeks, and say, I'm going to prove to you, that I'm worth. And
would you answer to a message like that on LinkedIn? So let's say tomorrow morning you get a message on LinkedIn from someone like Nicholas, who says that to you. Says, listen, I really, really want to come to Canada. I'm a PHP programmer. I don't mind if I have to work for free for a month just to prove myself. Are you open?
If he or she feels, if or she fits in all the requirements that we have, I'd say yes, although that I could feel a bit strange and bad that he or she would work for free, except that I like the fact that he or she would have the balls to do that.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know, I like that courage, you know,
Okay.
and that confidence, that trust. So yeah, it's painful. Like for me, it's painful to not pay or pay low, but at the same time, I like this motivation a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that
Drive.
because that person has a lot to lose, obviously.
But one last question on that. Now, it would be rough also if the person didn't cut it. Like they come here for a few weeks and you're like, oh
Yeah,
my
it's
god,
pretty
this
much
person's a
impossible.
terrible programmer, and you got to send them home.
Yeah,
It's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's it. I would.
we'll
be
let
afraid
someone
of.
else tell them, right? I'm
Yeah,
just
it looks
kidding.
like some real life example, eh?
Well, you know, it's like, yeah, it's hard. It's a commitment from the owners of the company too, because
Oh,
you're gonna have
100%.
to have that conversation if they're not good enough to
Well,
program here.
Here's an example. So we had here Chloe from France for 6-7 years, and at first I was working with her remotely, so she was there,
Okay.
and
Oh, so she proved herself remotely.
yeah, and then he said, you know, what about coming here? And yeah, for sure, super open. And I was in the process
That's
of doing
good.
the papers, and she's like, oh, I sold everything that I had in my apartment. I'm subleasing it. I'm ready to come. I said, whoa, I don't have any confirmation yet. I don't know. Like, and I would see myself in this. And she had kids, but she still have kids. And I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit. Now, if this goes wrong and she's on her way here, I'm gonna have to have this super painful conversation. Sorry, you got refused. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's.
But if it goes the other way, though, it's
It's
fantastic.
super- yeah.
Just the way that it did with Chloe. She stayed
Yeah.
here for like 6 or 7 years. She was amazing.
Yeah.
She was great. Shout out Chloe if you're watching. I hope you're watching.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely it's hard for the employer after that to, you know.
Break the news
Yeah,
and send
yeah.
them back to. Oh, okay. Well, we don't need to.
Oh, let's say a question from Canada here, Toronto. Robert, or Bob. I'm gonna call him Bob. So Bob is asking, I find I'm wasting a bit of time while coding. Do you have any tips to help me saving actual coding time?
Ooh.
I have. It makes me feel if actually I'm gonna start with that, and I'm gonna let them. There's a saying I read probably 10 years ago. I forgot in which books, but the and correct me if I'm not saying it right, but the guy was saying that if he had 3 days to cut a tree, it would take 2 days and a 3/4 to sharpen the blade or something like that, or the saw.
Okay. Okay.
And basically, it means takes more time to get ready, get prepared, know what you're going to do. So the actual effort is going to be much less. So that's what it makes me think about. I
Nick?
don't know if it's applicable in development, but
Can you repeat the question?
so if
He's wasting time.
So Bob,
programming.
he find that he's wasting a lot of time while coding. So I'm assuming that he's doing trials and error a lot.
Okay.
And so he's asking if we have any tips to actually save the actual coding time, the execution time, basically, the typing.
I would have to say, well, on your example, definitely plan out what you want to do ahead of time.
Yeah.
You know, I find every little bit of planning saves you a headache later on, especially with a complex functionality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which I mean, test-driven design helps with that too. You know, what do you want at the end? What's like the end result you want? You know, build your test and then build your function to get there. Other stuff, I mean, really depends what you're losing time on. If you find you're just recoding the same thing over and over again, or in similar situations a lot. I mean, I remember early on, or I still do it now. It's just I have like a side project with just like small functions in them that like I find I reuse in different projects all over the time. So instead of rewriting them all the time, I just go back and grab it, like my own little helper classes.
That's interesting. Is that something that a lot of senior developers do? They have their sort of toolbox from the past 10 years. Is that relevant, or do things change so fast in programming that your toolbox is going to get a lot?
I don't know. Like I've seen that. I've looked in that toolbox recently, and there's like, oh man, this just doesn't apply anymore. It's
Yeah,
like,
okay,
like you
okay.
kind of got to clean it up. There's that old rusted wrench in there sometimes.
There you go. Okay, makes sense. Adrian,
Any takes on?
No, nothing to add.
anything to add? Okay, cool.
All right. So we're gonna speed up a little bit. It's already half an hour. Allison from Brazil, Rio de Janeiro. What are
Brazil, again.
What are your thoughts and considering around? Oh, okay, you might have a hard time reading this one. What are your thoughts basically, and or what are you considering around the security when developing?
So, what are your thoughts around security while developing?
Yeah, and what are you considering?
Well, I think using a framework helps a lot with the security issues that we could see in raw PHP,
Yeah.
such as escaping parameters when you do a MySQL query, for example, because basically when you're using a framework, the ORM does it for you.
Yeah.
Or when you display a variable, like oftentimes you will always want to escape it, because if it contains HTML, you don't want to see the HTML being actually rendered to the user. So using a framework usually helps you alleviate that, because they will give you helper. So whenever you want to display a variable, it will be escaped automatically and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if you want to add anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely frameworks help. They take a load off. Like, you don't have to worry about escaping your SQL parameters, your database parameters. You know, somebody inputs a string with an apostrophe and a semicolon and then a drop table as their string after. Yeah, it doesn't. I remember in early PHP you could do that. If you didn't properly protect your forms and whatever, you could just inject anything. So that's what I like frameworks about. Take some of the consideration of security. Some things we're always worried about is whenever you have a user system, you know, can somebody hijack a session? Can somebody take over, impersonate another user? You know, without, you know, the system really wanting you to do that, or, you know, saving information in a session that should be for one user but it's open globally.
Yeah.
I mean, other things we consider. Anything with accounts and users, definitely. You want to make sure that what you're seeing is for your account, and permissions are definitely a big one. Who can see what? Who can do what? Protect your functions for that.
That is for sure. Right, let's speed up a little bit. I have a great one here. So Elizabeth in Alberta, she says, I'm 19 and I'm at school for programming. I'm learning a lot about concepts, but mostly in Java and C#. And I'm more attached to PHP. What should I do and where should I start? So I'm assuming she's in her first or maybe second year.
Okay.
And I know school you learn a lot about those things.
A lot about
but
Java.
Yeah.
But that's okay. The core concepts don't really change. Like if you learn object-oriented programming in Java or C# or whatever, this is something that you can apply in virtually any OOP programming language. So that's not really an issue. I would say, like, if you just want to get better, or if you just want to do PHP, just do a side project on PHP on top of your education, and that should be good enough, I guess.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, not much really to add to that.
Yeah, no. Yeah,
It's, I mean, there's a ton of simple tutorials out there, simple site builders. If you want to get into a particular framework, you know, just pick out the PHP framework and look up, you know, first step tutorials just to learn the language. But you know, like Raph said, your school will teach you the concepts, the object-oriented, how to structure an object-oriented project, how to get into that mindset of problem solving.
Yeah, and this is so much more important than actually learning one language, because
Exactly.
those are stuff that you can reapply anywhere else throughout your career. So
you should focus on being a great programmer and not being a great PHP or Java or, you know. And I had told that story in another podcast. I think that was with Nebez. Remember the guy we had and said, hey, you know about Ruby? And he said, let me check.
Oh yeah.
And 2 hours later, he come back and said, okay, I'm ready to go.
Dying. No, he said, okay, I'm a Ruby developer now.
Yeah.
that's the spirit.
After like 2 hours.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, he got hired by Amazon in Seattle.
Yeah.
So.
But I guess that speaks to that, right? If you're a programmer,
Yeah.
You can pretty much program in any language once you just.
I mean, you have to pick up at first, but
Yeah, for sure.
that's
Yeah.
okay.
I think it took him 2 hours.
That was crazy.
That's funny.
He was an edge case. He was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, he's exceptional for sure.
Yeah.
Philip in Los Angeles, PHP 4
Ooh,
just came out,
Los Angeles.
and I'm wondering if I should wait a little bit before upgrading from 7.3.
Oh, PHP 7.4. Okay. Ooh, that's a good one.
It's not. I don't think it's such a rush necessity, because if you're on 7.3, it still has active support
Yeah.
for the next 11 months to a year, and then like security support for the next year after that. So there's no big rush really to like upgrade. If you find you want to, and there's not a lot of technical debt to your project to do so, and you like the improvements, or you want to take advantage of some of the features, yeah, go right ahead.
Yep.
But if you were on 7.0 or 7.1, I'd say yes, upgrade it, because support's running out. But no, 7.3, I don't think there's a rush.
Good. Yeah, I guess it's not like 7 or 7.0 or 7.1, 2, 7.4 or something like that.
Yeah, those.
Yeah.
I mean, I need to double check the dates, but they're all definitely only on security support.
Mm-hmm.
If they still have security
I
support, if
don't think they do. I think
they all reached
7.0
them.
and 7.1 is are
end of life, they're
dead,
done.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think just Debian still updates some of the 7.0 branches, but
Yeah.
you shouldn't do that.
LinkedIn, Facebook.
Oh.
Facebook, I saw it. Christian.
Oh, follow up from Christian?
Yeah. Actually, he has 2 more, but one might be too long to answer. So I told him that I'm going to reply after.
Okay.
So for the answer, look on Facebook. And now he's asking what frameworks for you do you suggest? I know Laravel, for example. Any others?
That's a great question.
But it really depends on the need and what you know already, I guess. But you guys wanna go?
I mean, we're gonna. I don't really want to speak for everybody here, but like 90% of the time we go for Laravel.
Yeah.
It's
Is that because it's the newest framework?
no, it's
Or just the best?
It's been out for a while. I really like using it. I do.
Yeah.
I find it simple to use, and you can go far with it. Like if you want to apply more advanced programming concepts and coding patterns to it, you can. But straight out of the box, it works great.
Yeah.
Symfony's another good one. I haven't touched the latest versions of Symfony, so I can't really comment on them.
Same.
But no, it's another good one.
But yeah, I think both are really good, and I'm not sure about others. Like Zen framework used to be
Yeah.
a big thing, but not so much anymore.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
I can add, Christian, that from a sales point, business development point of view, it's pretty much only Laravel calls that I get. When people are calling and need help with a framework, it's always, okay, I want to do this in Laravel, I want to do this in Laravel. So
Yeah.
if you're a freelancer or in business for yourself and you're looking for what's popular out there, the demand, it's definitely Laravel.
What a great segue, because you just said if you're a freelance, and I have a question from a freelancer.
Oh, yeah?
And
Okay.
for you,
For me?
I think so.
Okay.
He says.
Control, Alt, Delete. That's all I know.
So Jack in Texas.
Jack!
He's freelancing, and sometimes he feels that he has to sell to prospect, sell himself, I'm
Yeah.
assuming, and it's killing him. So he's asking for any tips.
Oh, the act of selling is killing him?
Yeah, he's like, this is killing me. Like he's a freelancer,
So he's a freelance programmer?
and sometimes he feels he has to sell himself when he
Oh.
talks with prospect.
Yeah. Jack, the best advice I can give you is get a lot of satisfied clients and then just tell prospects, I can talk all day if you want, but please contact any one of these 3 or 4 people. And these are my satisfied clients that I've helped, and no one can explain better how good I am or how much I execute on my projects than my satisfied clients. And honestly, that's the best way to do it. If you're not into selling, obviously,
Yeah.
if you're into selling and you want to have that hour conversation, but again, I understand that. So that hour you're talking or half hour, you're not
Yeah.
programming and you're not making money. Best thing to do, get a nice group of satisfied clients that love you, and just tell your prospects, hey, reach out and don't even give. I wouldn't even give your prospects, your clients' phone numbers or email addresses, because then it becomes a little bit problematic for your clients. You don't want them to get harassed, but you can give them LinkedIn profiles, and they can reach out on their own to confirm it. And a lot of time, a prospect, when they see 4 or 5 satisfied clients, that's enough for them. You know, like so they're going to feel good about it.
Yeah.
That's a good way to get out of that.
That's
Oh, that's killing me type of
that's
situation.
that's a great tip.
Yeah,
I'm gonna take the other one because anyway, I have a lot to say about that. So Caleb in Ohio,
Caleb in Ohio, nice.
yeah. So I feel I'm always hiring the wrong developers. What do you ask them before hiring? Well, if you're always hiring the wrong developers, it's not because of the developer. Unfortunately, you can never know upfront. Obviously, you need to try, and you can claim as much as you want that you're a great recruiter. It really means nothing. I thought I was a great one too. Like I studied, I read a few books a long time ago, and I'm like, all right, now I'm a great recruiter. And in the end, intuition to me is probably the most dominant aspect of recruiting. But also, I guess, no, to your question, what do we ask? Well, you know what? There's a couple questions I ask for real, like, and they're really important to me. And Steve, our vibe manager, told me again last week that it seems that they often have hard time to understand to answer the question. And I'm always asking, like, what are you really looking for now? Like, when you started to look for a new opportunity, what did you have in mind? What were you looking for? Was it the work environment? Was it the type of projects? Was it just for money? Was it? And it's as if they have a hard time, answering in case they would say the wrong thing. But it's really about them. Like that's what I'm interested in. I want to know what selfishly they want, and especially from us. If someone say, "Well, I want to come here for 2-3 years, learn from you guys, and then I'm going to launch my business," all right. I mean, at least I know exactly what you want, right? But
Do you mean on a what about a technical aspect? Like how can you judge if someone says, okay, I'm an intermediate developer, I'm awesome.
yeah.
What do you do to kind of test that
Well,
out?
like I said, there's tons of developers. There's really a shitload of developers. The problem is the attitude or the personality that comes with, the knowledge. Most, if not, a big majority of them already know the fundamentals. They know how to code. They can do great things. But if you have a shit attitude, or you don't get along very well with people, you're very extremely introvert, and there's going to be some issues in teams, So judging the knowledges and that's the easy part. Judging the personality and see if you get along.
Well, the work ethic.
Well, the work ethic is a big thing.
Yeah.
And
So he doesn't really clarify what's wrong with the developers he's hiring, right? So we don't know if it's technically or if it's just attitude or they're always sick or.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough to know.
But it's also, I guess, I would obviously we could talk about this for a long time, but maybe something is what type of expectation do you have? When you hire, so you feel that they're not the right guys for you, like what do you expect from them? Do you expect them to work as much as you do as a business owner? Because if that's the case, maybe you should give them some shares, and it doesn't work that way. And do you expect them to just be physically coding 8 hours a day? Because that's not the reality neither. Like most devs going to be actually coding 2-3 hours a day, not 8 hours a day. So it depends on your expectation. But that would be my answer.
Okay. It's a challenge for everyone, by the way,
that's for
right?
sure.
So
That's for sure.
just stay the course, and you keep finding good guys.
Unfortunately, you're
And
gonna
girls.
you're gonna try a lot of people, and you're gonna probably have to let go some of them, and you do this in the benefit of your team and your culture, because you don't want to keep a cancer in your culture. You're gonna kill you're gonna kill the whole culture in the end. This one, sorry, Gab. Actually, no, the guy is from Montreal. I have to answer. So,
His name's Gab.
Hometown
Gabriel.
favoritism.
When to consider custom development as opposed to using something already existing?
Ooh.
Yeah, we have a lot to say because
That's a
we
good
spend
one.
thousands of hours on our ERP. Although we could have used a bunch of tools that are open source or even low fees, but I guess for us it was about time saving, optimization, all of that. So I guess we could use this as an example for when to use the Magento or Shopify type of thing, you know.
Mm.
Yeah.
No, but was the question when to use existing or
Co-
or throw it out and build from new, or
No, when to consider doing custom development as opposed to be using things that already exist, like software as a service. or platforms.
okay. Nick,
Well, if there's always do custom as a company, always do custom.
simply PHP.
But,
You're awesome.
I would
I
have
totally
to say,
disagree.
I would have to say, if you find a software or program that does exactly what you want, obviously go with that.
Yeah, obviously.
If it doesn't do exactly what you want, can you live with that? And then you can go with it. If it doesn't do exactly what you want and you want to change it, then just go with custom from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because if you're gonna take something and change it, then you're dependent on two things. You're dependent on that original software never changing, and your stuff working well with any changes that are made, and it's just a headache. You're better off building your own thing from scratch.
And sometimes you can find out that you thought you can change something in that off-the-shelf software,
Yeah.
but it turns out that you
Turns
can't.
out you can't.
You'll find out like 3-4 weeks later that you can't change that part.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen before.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny that question comes up because it was 2 days ago we had a client that was about to, a regular client that, you know, like a 40-hour-a-week,
Right.
1 or 2 developers on the project, was going to start something that was going to take 3 weeks of development.
Mm-hmm.
But he called me up the day before. He said, hey, by the way, we don't have to do that project. We found something relatively free off the shelf that does exactly what we want. I'm like, okay, great. Beautiful. So, you know, have your guys do something else.
Yep.
That's fantastic. I just hope that they research it properly and it actually
Yeah.
does what they want, and
Yeah,
they can customize it.
There's a few LinkedIn questions as well, and some arguments in the feed.
No
Okay.
boy.
I don't
No
have
arguments.
I don't have all the comments on my LinkedIn for some reason. It stopped where I say it's awesome, but.
You want to ask one?
But Steve just texted me a
sorry.
question for Matija. Is that the one you're talking about?
For who, sorry?
Matija Kopp. That's
no.
a great name. Jesus.
It's not Matilda?
No, Matija.
Matija.
Oh, yes, I see it now, yeah.
It's a woman, right?
No.
No, sorry. So
Oh, boy.
Matija asking, he wants to know if we use Docker and why WordPress is not favored with PHP devs.
That was two
You're just
awesome
opening
questions.
a can of worms on that.
Yes! We'll
We're
be right
sorry,
back
we're out
after
of
these
time.
messages.
That's awesome.
That's great.
So
Actually, you know what?
Okay, wait, let's go with the first question.
yeah,
The Docker.
We do use Docker on some projects.
yeah.
I use
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
You use it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's great to pack an application, to create a package out of the application, and you can just run it anywhere. As long as you can just run your Docker image, you can run it. So it's great for that. It's really portable, and you can have the same image whenever you develop and whenever you put it in production. Meaning that you can have a development environment that is really close and that's actually similar to the production environment, and that's really good.
So are we gonna do the WordPress?
And what was the
question?
WordPress?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
wanna do
WordPress
WordPress?
thing.
I love WordPress.
This may be just from my experiences, so I could be wrong. I find WordPress is a great tool for what it is.
Yeah.
Seen a lot of sites with it, and it works wonderfully well, and it's kept up to date, and there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with it. I find the problem with WordPress comes when people try, and this goes back to the previous question, existing versus custom. People take WordPress
Yeah.
and make it very custom and
Yeah.
add go and add a lot of functionality to it, and then it just becomes, for lack of a better word, broken, because the next time a WordPress update comes along, none of your custom code works with it because something fundamental changed in the WordPress code itself. And I think that's maybe where a lot of the stigma of PHP developers not liking WordPress comes from, is that because it's so simple to use and set up, it's a great base.
Yeah.
And people have used that and then just, I'll just tweak this, I'll just tweak that, and we'll just add this to it, and then I'll pull in this plugin and then tweak that plugin even. And you're, at that point, you have a custom project that you pretty much have to maintain.
I think it also depends how you do your custom developments, because I've seen a project here where the previous programmer just modified the theme directly. So he modified the WordPress theme directly. So of course that's not how you should do it, because then whenever the next update of the theme comes, then all your developments are gone. So if you kind of start to do custom development in WordPress, please try to do it right. Meaning, if you want to modify a theme, just use a child theme. If you want to create a modification, do not tweak the core of WordPress, create a plugin. So all this kind of stuff. So if you do it right, it could be an option, but if you want to do heavy custom development, then I wouldn't say that WordPress is a good option. If you want to do a few things here and there, sure, that could be good enough.
Our website is WordPress.
Yeah.
Works pretty well.
So is it safe to say that some people take projects with like way too much complex functionality and they try to shoehorn it into WordPress?
Yeah.
Definitely.
So that's one?
It's, well, again, from my experience, yes.
Yeah, well, everything you say is from your experience.
It's definitely yes. But
Okay.
no, and that's it. They'll say, well, I'll start with WordPress because this will save me X amount of time at the beginning. I'll be able to cut down this. And then,
What was the name of the person that asked that question? Was that Matilda?
No,
No, Matija. So I think when Matija mentioned stigma, now is he talking because, as you said, it's kind of like a little bit of a basic, I don't know if you use the word entry level, but could it be that an intermediate to senior developer sees WordPress as something like, is sort of not beneath them, but more something that beginners kind of use, and they might have used it at the beginning of their career, but now they're into like more complicated stuff in it. WordPress,
because
I'm not going to use
I
WordPress.
totally agree, because it's so easy to get started with WordPress, and that's why you see so many plugins with really bad code on WordPress, because it's so easy to do that pretty much everybody does it. Everybody wants to tick on WordPress, and that's good, but at some point that's what you see, such a diversity of plugins and themes. Like some are really good, but some of them are really, really bad, and you don't even want to use that.
Well, let's
on your
make
website.
something very clear. Whether it's a CMS or a framework, do not modify the core files.
Oh yeah, no.
Please.
I think I even know that, especially on Magento.
especially on
So-
Magento.
Especially on Magento.
There's
Don't do that.
we're gonna take one more question because it's gonna be an hour, and I guess they're hungry, and
I don't know if the mic is
There's
picking up
still-
my stomach rumbling.
and they obviously have work to do this afternoon. So, but that question I really wanted to ask to ask it and answer it, because that's a problem we see even sometime here internally with shy people. So Karen in Salt Lake City.
Utah.
Yeah. I just got hired at a company as their main developer. Their principal application with PHP Laravel is not well documented and a bit messy. How would you address this both to the management and in terms of development?
Well, in terms of development, definitely document stuff going forward, comment your code, add any clarifications you can. With the other problem of lacking documentation now, no, management's not a problem.
No.
Don't worry. It's a hard sell, and we've had to do it with clients before, and sometimes they go for it, and sometimes you don't, and pretty much you have to sell the idea that taking some time now to document a process or clean up a process or comment some code can save time later on, because it's just, if you know what you're doing when you go in, you're not figuring it out on the spot. Unfortunately, it's a hard sell. Some people don't see it and some people do.
And one thing that probably going to be perceived is that depend on their experience with developers. We hear that often, you know, that when a new developer gets into an application, that's messy, waiting 5 minutes type of thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes it hides either incompetence, laziness, not all of the time, obviously. So if those people, if your management been through that often, which I would try to figure out, be careful with just saying this without any facts. But if you can bring facts to the to the conversation, that's going to help a lot and make them understand. Because most managers are not technical and they won't understand. And we have a whole conversation or article about that on the website. Take a look. Yeah.
I think also, Karen, you have to be very careful on how you bring it up.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be inevitably throwing some people under the bus. If you're going to say that this is messy, this is not documented, there's some people in the company, you're new, right? You're just coming in there, and this is not a technical thing, but just be careful, say things in a certain way. Hey, you know what, can we have a meeting to talk about optimizing this and optimizing that? It's good, everything looks fine, but I think it could be better.
Yeah.
You know, kind of walk a little bit like that, because
And-
especially since you just started, you don't want to ruffle too many feathers.
And obviously die on your own sword, meaning like you put your name on the table. But in the last podcast we did in the number 10 with Eric, he said that he always managed to leave what he worked on the way he would have wished to get it. So obviously now that you're gonna get into that mess, find a way to make it so nice so in a year, 2 years, 5 years from now, if you leave it, no one's gonna be able to say something against it, obviously, or at least at a minimum.
Like a Boy Scout, leave something.
That's pretty much
I've
it.
never been there. I've never
Me
been
neither,
there
but I heard you leave something better than the way you found it, right?
Yeah. So, Eric is saying a very good point, Tony, about not throwing people under the bus.
Yeah.
The Boy Scout rule. So you have a fan now. That's good. I think we're gonna stop there. We're definitely gonna redo that. That's really cool. I like
Yeah, it was great.
I do feel it brings a lot of value to people.
Yeah.
There was quite a lot of people actually on the live, and I just have one platform here.
Cool.
But that's super cool. I don't know if we're gonna do it again. I mean, every week or every 2 weeks or every month, but definitely stay tuned. We're gonna do it again. And for the next ones, send questions, info@simplyphp.com, or just go on even on this post and comment with your questions. But that was pretty cool. Pretty happy.
Yeah, thank you everyone for showing up. We're a little worried about this today. It's our first one, and
Yeah.
thanks for your support.